I'm waiting for a signal from the genius bar back there. Dr. Strange in the movie, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, is a renowned neurosurgeon. And he's been in a terrible car accident, and his hands are, mangled is a good word. Thank you. I was looking for that word. And he's lost most of the nerves in his hands and doesn't know if he'll ever be able to use them again, let alone be able to be a surgeon. And he identifies as a surgeon. That's who and what he is in his estimation. And so he goes through this journey of healing and wanting to get back to full use of his hands. And he is led to a place far off in the eastern mountains. And he meets the Ancient One, the woman he's having the conversation with in the clip. And she is his teacher, his master. And he thinks that his journey now is only about healing his hands and becoming a neurosurgeon again. And he is really, really struggling with this process because he's never had to work so hard. He's never been faced with losing who and what he thinks he is. But he's being called out to a greater journey now. He's being called out to be in this mystical war that's happening between good and evil. And as he says in the clip, he's not ready. And she tells him, we never are. We never are. We never know what our time is or when we're going to be called and what's going to be required of us. But he's still in that struggle because he just wants his old life back. And I love what she tells him, that the world will be lesser for it if you don't move through this into what you're called to be. The world will be lesser for it. So that's Dr. Strange. On April 15, 2013, two men were at the finish line of the Boston Marathon. Jeff Bauman and Carlos Arredondo. And they were there precisely at the moment when the bombs went off. In fact, Jeff Bauman came into direct contact with one of the terrorists. He bumped into him right before he was getting ready to set off the bomb. And in that incident, as those bombs went off, Jeff Bauman found himself on the ground, and both legs were blown off right above the knees. And he's on the ground looking at himself, minus most of both legs, thinking he's about to die, until Carlos Arredondo comes and picks him up and gets him on a stretcher into an ambulance to Boston Medical Center. Jeff Bauman goes through a similar journey as Dr. Strange did. All he wants to do is to heal and to get better. And he spirals down into his alcoholism. He's already a heavy drinker. But then through this experience of trying to come back to some state of health, to finding a life, because now he's probably not going to work ever again. At the moment of the blast, he was there to greet his on-again, off-again girlfriend who was running in the marathon. And at this point, she has left him. And he's trying to get her back, and that's the reason why he's at the marathon. Because for once, he wants to show up for her. So he doesn't know now, in this time of need, if she's going to be there for him. So he's going through his own crisis. He just wants his old life back. And yet, he is called into something greater than. But it takes him a while. And the turning point for him is when Carlos Arredondo, the gentleman who picked him up and got him to an ambulance and saved his life, calls and says he wants to meet Jeff for coffee. And Jeff is the one who thinks that he owes everything to Carlos for saving his life. And yet it is Carlos who is infinitely grateful to Jeff because he was at the marathon to pay tribute to his two sons. His elder son died in Iraq a number of years before then, and his second son killed himself in despair over his brother's death. And so he's at the marathon to find some way to find his way back. And he was at the marathon giving out American flags to everyone who passed him. And in that moment when Jeff's legs get blown off, Carlos feels a sense of purpose again. He tells Jeff when they're having coffee that you saved my life because helping you gave me purpose again. Sometimes when we're in our crises, all we see is the crisis. All we know is that we want something else. We may, and we most likely want to go back to pre-crisis living. And yet we are called forward in the crisis. And I was reminded again of the Ancient One's words to Dr. Strange when Jeff was having his struggle and talking to Carlos. Because for Jeff, it was not about him in that moment. Perhaps Jeff's crisis was solely to help Carlos find meaning again in his life. There are serendipities and synchronicities that happen in life that we cannot understand or comprehend because we're stuck in the crisis. And we're stuck in our stuff. And we're wondering, why me, why me, why me? When perhaps the universe has decided it is not about you. It's about someone else. Someone else who's been touched by your experience. But it takes being open. It takes trusting the beneficence of the universe. Do you believe that the law of good is working in your life, even if your legs have just been blown off? And that perhaps there's some good there that you cannot comprehend at the moment because something else glorious is at work. That maybe it's not about your life being saved, but about someone else's life being saved. That's why I think about that philosophy that sometimes we come forward to be the hero in somebody else's life. That perhaps we sign on before we ever get here in physicality. We sign on and say, I will serve this purpose for this being, this other being. And so we go through something that, yes, is for us on one level, but is also for someone else. Think about that. The next time you're going through something, the next time you're struggling with something, grappling with something, wishing that it was not happening, that perhaps you were there for something else besides yourself. Perhaps divine wisdom has brought about 1,000,000 different things. More than 1,000,000. Think about all the things that had to happen for Jeff Bauman and Carlos Arredondo to be at that marathon together, precisely at that moment, in that place, for their lives to collide and be blessed. Jeff ends up getting prosthetics and being able to walk again. He tells his girlfriend when he's in the hospital one day that I'm going to walk again. And he's fitted for prosthetics and he does walk. And he and his girlfriend have a beautiful baby girl now. And he has now gone back to school and he is studying engineering because his plan is to help those to test and design prosthetics for people who need them. Look what he's being called into now. He had to lose his legs to get there. And yet, Jeff nor anyone else knew about any of that perfection in that moment when that blast went off. Sometimes it's not about us. Sometimes it's not about us. And we can't understand. We don't understand. And maybe it's okay that we don't understand. So this is from a beautiful book written by Andy Andrews called The Noticer. And in The Noticer, the main character is Jones. And he's very apt to tell everybody it's not Mr. Jones, it's just Jones. And Jones shows up in people's lives at different times precisely when he's needed. And he's always there to offer some kind of wisdom to them about their lives. They are spiraling down because of something, and he is there to be that voice of wisdom for them. At some point towards the end of the book, Jones disappears, and they don't know where he is, but they find a letter that he leaves to this town that he has positively influenced over the years. It's interesting because people know him as they are able to see him. There's a young Hispanic man who has an experience with him who sees him as an Hispanic man. Some of the elders in town, when they see him and meet him, they see him as someone who is older. And they have a different name for him. So people always see Jones as they need Jones to be in order to be open to what Jones has to say. So this is the letter Jones leaves to the townfolk. My dear friends, for so long now I have been among you and cared for each of you more than you could possibly know. Many times, even when you did not see me or sense my presence, I was there, watching closely and listening carefully. Your time on this earth is a gift to be used wisely. Don't squander your words or your thoughts. Consider that even the simplest actions you take for your lives matter beyond measure, and they matter forever. I do not believe that you will see me again here in this place, but trust that the seeds I have planted in your minds and hearts will be sufficient to carry you forward. These are the seeds of perspective. During the challenging times ahead, you will find that simple seeds of perspective are more valuable than diamonds or gold. It is an answer, of course, that most people seek in times of turmoil. Sometimes that answer is immediate, but it is not seen due to a lack of perspective. Many of you have seen this in your own lives. However, you also now know a secret that most do not understand. The reason an answer is not often found in the midst of crisis is that many times at that very moment, a specific answer does not exist. In desperate times, much more than anything else, folks need perspective. For perspective brings calm. Calm leads to clear thinking. Clear thinking yields new ideas, and ideas produce the bloom of an answer. Keep your head and heart clear. Perspective can just as easily be lost as it can be found. I have left these seeds for you as a simple reminder that you must also plant your own seeds in the minds and hearts of those you touch. You will honor my memory with your work. I am not gone. I will be around. The best is yet to come. Jones. Perspective, that's all we need really in these moments when everything is tumbling down on us. And sometimes we have to be willing to see something else. Sometimes we have to widen our view and be willing and be curious about what might be possible in a moment of crisis. Maybe it's about you, maybe it's not. Maybe there's something calling you forward through the crisis to something else that will heal you and serve the world. And if you refuse to go, if you want just your pre-crisis life, the world will be lesser for it. You will be lesser for it. You are in the process of contracting. And that is out of alignment with who you are, as Marianne Williamson says in that book. Because we are love, we are expansion, we are power, we are grace, we are goodness. And there is always that in the midst of the crisis, in the midst of the stuff. Especially when we are starting to doubt who and what we are because of the crisis. I know that's usually where I go first when I'm in the midst of something. I always question myself. What did I do wrong? Maybe I didn't have what I thought I had. Maybe I wasn't right. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do this. Maybe I don't have that gift. Always question myself. And yet who we are as unique expressions of the divine never changes. Doesn't matter what you're going through. That is a constant. The essence of who you are never changes. Doesn't matter if what you were able to do yesterday you can't do today. It's interesting in that book, The Body Says No, they talk about Stephen Hawking and the disease that thoroughly crippled his body. And the author has an opportunity to talk to Stephen Hawking about his experience and what that meant to have his body just crumble and be of no more use to him. And what Stephen said is that he realized that not having a physical body enabled him to focus completely on the power of his mind. And to figure out all those things that confound most of us. I can't conceive of the things he figured out or how he figured them out. Perhaps if he hadn't had the disease, we would not have had the benefit of his knowledge. Perhaps. Perhaps. You see, I didn't have a body to worry about. All my power went here. All my power. And the world is the better for it. And he lived decades past where most people who have the same disease ever live or exist. In fact, he thrived. He thrived. to the next crisis we're in? Will we be willing to open up our minds and be curious about the possibilities in that moment? It's the other thing the Ancient One says that I love. That maybe we can't see a specific thing in our future because there are so many possibilities. There's an infinite number of possibilities for us, always. Especially in the moment of crisis. Possibilities are endless. And that's why we have to have spiritual practice, prayer and meditation every day, being in the silence, having an experience of God as often as we can, because if you do, when you get into crisis, then you're open. You have the capacity to be curious in that moment about what could be next. And so you don't start spiraling down about why me, why me, why me. Instead, you can say, oh my gosh, doors are opening up. And I get to choose something. And if I don't like that door, I can choose another door. If I don't like that second door, I go to a third door, fourth door, fifth door. And I can keep going through doors until I find one that sings to me. That sings to me. Synchronicities, serendipities, stuff that happens. The world is a magical, mysterious place. Life is magical and mysterious. We don't have it all figured out. And just when you think you do, there's a million possibilities waiting for you to claim one. Let's take this into meditation. So get centered, get still. All of us, we're grappling with something. Each of us has something. We may call it a crisis. And perhaps we're wishing it away. Perhaps we just wish our old life was back before the stuff hit the fan. So I invite you to open your mind and your heart right now. And think about the others, other beings, other people who are also floating in and out of this experience with you. Perhaps your experience and who you are and how you are walking through this experience is a gift to someone else. Perhaps you have come to be a blessing for someone. Perhaps there's an angel in your experience waiting to bless you, and you don't see it because you're caught in the crisis wishing it weren't here. Can you be curious about what's going on? That maybe it's for so much more than what you thought. Maybe it's not about you. Can you be open? Can you be curious? Who might be watching and paying attention? Who might be swirling around the periphery of your existence that is touched by you? I invite you to just be willing to crack open the door of curiosity. Knowing that the all good is always at work in our lives. And so goodness always reigns, even during what we have judged to be a crisis. Just be open, because when we are willing, miracles can happen. Only when we are willing, miracles happen. And so in this moment, as you think of this situation that you may be wishing away, or really struggling with and asking, why me? And there are no answers, I invite you to say yes and thank you for infinite possibility. Say yes and thank you to the blessing you might be to someone else. Someone's life you might be saving at this very moment. Say yes and thank you for the power and the strength to deal with whatever is in your path right now, for you surely have it if you will claim it. Say yes and thank you for miracles. Say yes and thank you for miracles. So let's take a deep breath in. Exhale. And relax, relax, relax. In the knowledge that the all good is at work here and now, everywhere. And be willing to pull back your judgment of whatever it is you're going through and call it something else other than a crisis. Perhaps it's an opportunity to grow and expand, to step into something you have been called into. Perhaps there's goodness down the road waiting for you to claim it, beckoning you forward. Continue to breathe and relax. Yes and thank you. Yes and thank you to God, the all good. Who came in physical form to this world of ours to give us life, the life abundant, to give us life, abundant life. So we breathe into abundant living. Exhale abundant living, knowing that there's an infinite source of it, always and everywhere. Breathe in, breathe out. Saying yes to synchronicities and serendipities that we cannot explain nor understand. Saying yes to life and all its mysteries and beauty and perfection. And so it is, and so it shall be. Amen.